You've probably been here before, standing in the middle of a confusing relationship, wondering, should I keep giving this guy my time, my effort, my heart? And let's be real, walking away is sometimes the right thing. But what if you're about to give up on someone who's actually worth fighting for? Let's flip the script. Instead of only looking for red flags, let's focus on the green lights, the signs that say, hey, don't walk away yet. Because not every relationship is perfect right away. Sometimes growth takes time and love takes patience. In a world full of people who make grand entrances and quick exits, consistency is one of the rarest and most underrated signs of genuine love. Anyone can send sweet text at midnight or whisper charming things on a date night, but consistency, that's not based on mood or moment. It's based on character. It shows up in the quiet, uneventful moments when no one's watching and nothing dramatic is happening. And if a man keeps showing up for you even when life isn't easy or exciting, that's a deeper kind of connection. It tells you that you matter to him beyond convenience. You can tell a lot about someone by how they behave when things get inconvenient. Maybe he had a stressful day at work, or maybe he's dealing with personal issues of his own, but does he still check in on you? Does he follow through on the little commitments he made, like calling you when he said he would, or making time for that conversation you mentioned mattered to you? These aren't just gestures of politeness. They are signs of emotional responsibility. They show you that even when his life is full, he makes space for you. When a man is consistent, you start to feel emotionally settled. You no longer spend your days guessing whether he'll reply or analyzing his tone to figure out where you stand. You start to breathe easier because consistency brings emotional safety, and emotional safety is what builds trust. It's not about the grand declarations of love. It's about showing up again and again in ways that tell your nervous system, you don't have to be on edge here. It's important to understand that consistency doesn't mean perfection. It doesn't mean he's always available or that he never has off days. It means that he tries, especially on the days when showing up takes effort, when he's tired, when he's running late, when he's stressed. If he still prioritizes connection with you, that says more about his heart than anything he could ever say in words. True effort isn't loud, it's consistent. Some people show up only when it's fun, when things are romantic or the vibes are good. But when things get messy, they disappear. That's not consistency, that's convenience. A man who keeps trying, who stays emotionally present even when the mood shifts or a conflict arises, is someone who sees you as part of his life, not just a passing experience. He values the relationship enough to keep it steady, even when it would be easier to fade out. One of the biggest mistakes people make is mistaking intensity for consistency. Just because someone blows up your phone one week doesn't mean they'll be there when you're anxious and need real support. True consistency is quieter. It doesn't always come with butterflies or big words, but it creates a foundation that lets love breathe. It allows both people to feel held, seen, and steady. That's not just comforting, it's powerful. So if you're with someone who keeps showing up, not just when he feels like it, but because he knows you deserve it, don't underestimate that. That's not just someone who's present. That's someone who's committed, because consistency isn't just about loving when it's easy. It's about choosing someone even on the days when it would be easier not to. There's a big difference between hearing someone and truly listening to them. Most people are just waiting for their turn to talk. They nod, they say, yeah. They give generic responses, but their mind is already forming the next sentence or drifting somewhere else entirely. When a man listens only to reply, you can feel it. It's in the way he interrupts, in the way he glosses over your emotions, or gives you a quick fix without really sitting with what you said. That's not presence, that's performance. But when a man listens to understand, it feels completely different. He doesn't just focus on your words, he tunes into your emotions. He notices when your voice softens or tightens. He hears what you're not saying and gives you space to bring it to the surface. He doesn't rush to fix things or insert his opinion just to feel important. He slows down, leans in, and shows you that what you're saying matters, that your thoughts, your feelings, your stories deserve time and attention. You begin to notice that your conversations with him don't feel like battles or monologues. They feel like true exchanges. He doesn't compete with your pain, compare it to his own, or dismiss your perspective just because he doesn't immediately relate. Instead, he validates. He takes the time to reflect back what he heard, sometimes with clarity, sometimes with questions, because he genuinely wants to understand the world through your eyes, not just explain his own. Listening like that builds an invisible thread between two people, a thread of emotional safety and trust. And over time, that trust becomes a game changer. You stop hiding pieces of yourself because you know you won't be shut down or misunderstood. You stop rehearsing your feelings in your head before sharing them because you know they'll be received with care. When someone listens to understand, you stop feeling alone, even when you're hurting. A man who listens well doesn't need to agree with everything you say. That's not the point. The goal isn't perfect alignment. It's respectful curiosity. He wants to know what shaped you, what scares you, what lights you up, what breaks your heart. He listens not because he's trying to win a debate, but because he's trying to love you better. And loving someone better always starts with listening deeper. It's not just the big moments where this shows up. It's in the small, ordinary ones too. He remembers that you don't like your coffee too sweet. He circles back to a conversation from last week because he knows it still matters to you. He picks up on your silence and gently asks, "What's on your mind?" These small listening moments accumulate, and suddenly you realize you're not just seen, you're understood. Too many people spend their relationships trying to talk louder just to be heard. But when you're with someone who listens with intention, you don't have to raise your voice. You don't have to over-explain. You don't have to shrink or defend or repeat yourself endlessly. You get to be honest. You get to be real. Because he's not just waiting for a pause in the conversation. He's waiting to truly know you. It's easy to talk when everything's light, fun, and effortless. But the true test of any connection isn't how well two people vibe during the good times. It's how they communicate when things get difficult. Hard conversations are inevitable in any relationship. There will be misunderstandings, mismatched needs, moments of emotional discomfort. What matters most is how someone responds when those moments arise. Does he shut down or lean in? Does he deflect, defend, or actually listen and try to work through it? A man who's willing to have hard conversations, even when it's awkward or emotionally intense, is someone who values growth over comfort. He doesn't walk away the moment emotions get raw. He doesn't ghost you, distract you, or minimize what you're trying to express. Instead, he stays in it with you. He's present in the discomfort, not because it's easy for him, but because you and the relationship matter enough to face that discomfort together. That kind of emotional courage is rare. Many people avoid hard conversations not because they don't care, but because they don't have the tools or the maturity to navigate them. But when someone is willing to try to sit down and say, "Let's talk about this even if it's uncomfortable," that's a reflection of someone emotionally invested. That's someone who's not just interested in being right, they're invested in being real. And that difference is everything. What's powerful about these conversations isn't just what gets resolved, it's what gets revealed. You learn how both of you handle tension. You learn what triggers pain, where insecurities lie, what the other person needs when they feel misunderstood. And more importantly, you learn how to support each other without losing yourselves. Hard conversations aren't just about solving problems, they're about building emotional intimacy. It's also important to recognize that communication isn't always clean and eloquent. Sometimes people fumble through their feelings. Sometimes they say the wrong thing before they find the right one. But if he's trying, if he's showing up with sincerity and a desire to understand, you're seeing the beginnings of someone who can meet you at a deeper emotional level. Perfection isn't the goal, participation is. And if he keeps showing up to the hard moments, that's a quiet form of commitment. There's also a safety that builds over time when someone doesn't flinch at emotional honesty. You start to feel that you don't have to tiptoe around issues. You stop bottling things up or watering down your truth, because every time you bring something vulnerable to him and he stays, listens, engages, you gain a little more trust. And with trust, love becomes less fragile. It becomes something you can work with, not just feel. So if you're with a man who faces hard conversations with openness instead of avoidance, don't overlook that. That's someone who wants resolution, not just comfort. That's someone who's not afraid to get his hands dirty emotionally. And while that may not always feel easy, it is one of the strongest indicators that he's not just in it for the good parts. He's in it for all of it. Desire is easy to find. It's in compliments, flirtation, physical touch, the things that make your heart race and your ego light up. But emotional safety, that's different. It's not about butterflies or chemistry. It's about peace. It's about being able to breathe in someone's presence and not feel like you have to perform or pretend. When you're with a man who makes you feel emotionally safe, you don't just feel attractive, you feel accepted fully. Even in your rawest, most unfiltered moments, There's a subtle but powerful difference between who's drawn to your beauty and someone who holds space for your vulnerability. The first might adore you when you're glowing, playful, and put together, but the second stays close when you're overwhelmed, when you're quiet, when you're not at your best. He doesn't recoil when you cry. He doesn't get impatient when you're anxious. He doesn't make you feel like your feelings are too much or inconvenient. He makes room for all of you, not just the parts that are easy to love. Emotional safety is knowing you can speak your truth without fearing punishment, ridicule, or withdrawal. It's when you share a deep insecurity and instead of him pulling away, he leans in with empathy. It's when you express a fear and he doesn't minimize it, he honors it. A man who provides emotional safety helps you stop questioning your worth, not because he constantly reassures you with words, but because his presence is the reassurance. When you feel emotionally safe with someone, you become more yourself. You stop overthinking every text. You stop holding back your dreams, your doubts, your weird quirks. You stop molding yourself into what you think he wants. And instead, you show up as who you are. That's what emotional safety does. It invites authenticity. And real connection can only happen when both people feel safe enough to be real. Sometimes we confuse passion with connection. We chase after people who make us feel desired but leave us emotionally unstable. We get addicted to the highs and lows, will he call, anxiety, the mystery. But that's not love, that's adrenaline. Emotional safety might feel quieter at first, but it's the thing that makes love last. Because you can't build anything solid on emotional unpredictability. You build it on trust, stability, and security. You'll know you're emotionally safe with a man when your nervous system doesn't feel on alert every time something goes wrong. You don't constantly brace for distance or defensiveness. You don't fear that one honest conversation might end everything. Instead, you feel calm, seen, heard. You know he has the emotional maturity to stay grounded with you, even when life throws chaos your way. That's not just attractive, it's rare. And if a man creates that kind of emotional climate where you can fall apart and still feel held, don't take that lightly, because anyone can make you feel wanted for a moment. But someone who makes you feel emotionally safe, that's someone who's trying to build a home within the relationship, not just a highlight reel. Words are powerful, but without actions, they're just noise. Anyone can say the right things. I care about you. You're important to me. I'll change. But it's what someone does after those words that tells you everything you need to know. A man who follows through with consistent behavior isn't just talking about love. He's practicing it. And that practice, that lived commitment, matters far more than perfectly crafted phrases. When someone is genuinely invested in you, it shows in the little things. The moments when no one's watching, when there's nothing to gain and no applause to be had. Maybe it's him driving out of his way to bring you something because he remembered you mentioned a headache, or quietly supporting you on a stressful day without needing recognition. These aren't grand gestures, they're intentional ones. And intentionality is what separates real care from superficial charm. Words are often reactive. They come out when we're afraid to lose someone, when we want to fix things quickly, or when we feel pressure. But actions are proactive. They come from a place of sincerity, planning, and thoughtfulness. A man who consistently shows up through his behavior is telling you, you're not just a priority when it's convenient. You matter to me, even when it takes effort. And effort is the currency of commitment. You start to notice this pattern when he keeps his promises, even the small ones. When he says he'll call, he does. When he says he'll be there for something important, he shows up. It's not about perfection, it's about reliability. There's a quiet kind of love in reliability that creates a foundation for trust. And trust built on actions, not just affection, is what creates a deep and lasting bond. It's easy to fall for words, especially when you're craving reassurance. But over time, it's actions that will calm your anxiety, not compliments. When a man's behavior aligns with what he says, you stop second guessing. You stop needing to decode his texts or interpret mixed signals. His consistency creates clarity, and clarity is the antidote to confusion and heartbreak. He also doesn't use words as a way to avoid accountability. He doesn't promise you change just to delay confrontation. He does the work. Maybe he messes up, but he reflects, adjusts, and makes real efforts to grow. That kind of follow through is rare. It shows emotional responsibility. It shows you that he's not just trying to keep you, he's trying to deserve you. When you're with someone whose actions speak louder than his words, love stops feeling like a guessing game. It becomes something you can count on, something you can lean into. And while passion can spark with words, real partnership is built with action. A man who chooses to love you through what he does is offering you something far more valuable than charm. He's offering consistency, integrity, and truth. There's a powerful difference between someone who wants things to stay comfortable and someone who wants to keep growing. Growth is uncomfortable. It challenges your habits, your beliefs, and your ego. But in a relationship, growth is what turns a good connection into a lasting one. When a man is willing to evolve, not just for the sake of keeping the peace, but because he wants to be better for himself and for the relationship, that's a sign of deep emotional maturity. A man who's willing to grow doesn't pretend he has it all figured out. In fact, he's self-aware enough to know he doesn't. He's not defensive when you give him feedback. He doesn't turn every disagreement into a blame game. Instead, he reflects. He asks himself hard questions. He tries to understand his patterns, why he shuts down, why he reacts a certain way. And he does the inner work, not just to fix things, but because he actually cares about becoming a better version of himself. Growth-minded people don't wait until they lose someone to start changing. They grow in real time. Maybe he reads, goes to therapy, has tough conversations, or simply takes accountability in a way that's new for him. You begin to see it not just in his promises, but in his practice. There's humility in that kind of effort. It says, I know I'm not perfect, but I value what we're building enough to change what might hurt it. This kind of man doesn't treat change like a chore. He treats it like a choice. He's not trying to become someone he's not. He's not abandoning himself to keep you. Instead, he's identifying the parts of him that need healing or softening or strengthening, and he's doing it with intention. That growth benefits you both, because when one person in a relationship rises, the dynamic rises with them. You'll feel the difference in how he handles conflict. Instead of reacting with ego, he pauses. Instead of walking away, he leans in. Instead of brushing things under the rug, he asks deeper questions. That's not about being naturally gifted at relationships. It's about having the desire to do better. And desire is everything. It shows he's emotionally invested, not just in staying with you, but in deserving to stay with you. You may also notice that his growth doesn't just serve the relationship, it improves every area of his life. He becomes more emotionally available, more self-aware, more intentional with how he shows up. That's the thing about real growth. It doesn't just change how someone treats you, it changes how they treat themselves. It's a ripple effect that creates stability, trust, and mutual respect, qualities that every strong relationship needs to thrive. Being with someone who wants to grow is never about expecting perfection. It's about being with someone who cares enough to try, someone who views love not as a destination, but as a process, a journey, and if he's willing to keep walking that path, not just when it's smooth, but when it gets steep and unfamiliar, you're not just witnessing effort. You're witnessing evolution, and that's something truly rare. At the end of the day, love isn't just about how someone makes you feel in the moment. It's about how someone shows up over time. If you're seeing these signs, the effort, the emotional presence, the consistency, the growth, don't overlook them. These things may not always scream loudly, but they speak clearly. They tell you that you're not just in a fling, you're in something that has depth, intention, and the potential to grow into something real. No relationship is perfect. Every connection has its messy, imperfect chapters. But when you're with someone who shows up, listens with heart, leans into the hard stuff, makes you feel safe, backs up words with action, and keeps evolving, that's not someone you give up on too quickly. That's someone you meet halfway. That's someone you build with. So before you walk away, pause, look not just at the flaws, but at the foundations. Because sometimes the right person isn't the one who gets it all right from day one. It's the one who's willing to grow with you, try with you, and stay with you, especially when it matters most.